Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe and a baby joining you after the Dallas Mavericks defeated the Utah Jazz in one of the most vicious drubbings I have seen maybe since the time they beat the crap out of the Clippers, whether that was last year or 2 years ago. I don't remember. 147-97, they defeated the Utah Jazz. I'm joined as always by Josh Bowe, my co-editor-in-chief over at Mavs Moneyball. Josh, what's going on?
I'm doing pretty good. I was trying not to laugh into the microphone because right before we went live, you asked me to help you tweet out the YouTube link since obviously you have your hands full, and I didn't click away from, like, as I loaded the URL, I didn't mute it. So as I'm trying to tweet it, I'm basically hearing our intro music twice because it's playing, through our studio recording here in StreamYard and also on YouTube, and it sounded like a high school jazz band falling down the stairs. And I was trying really hard not to laugh, but I feel like that's a perfect way to start.
I have done that.
The Mavericks win by 50 games or 50 points.
50 and points. I want to say that this is the Jazz's 50th season, something like that, because one of their beat writers, I think his name's Andy Larson, tweeted out the photo, like the 50th anniversary graphic. And he said, I don't think this is what we meant by 50. Oh, yeah. So, God, after that, really, you had a social engagement on Saturday. And like any person should on the second night of a back-to-back, not really expecting much of the Dallas Mavericks when they played the Oklahoma City Thunder. And you then missed the ability to talk about the craziest loss that I can remember. But it was really something. And that was on Saturday nights. Then we had Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, 3 days to just sort of stew.
Felt like a mini all-star break.
Well, I mean, and it's just like this. I appreciate the NBA tournament stuff because they're trying something new. Mm-hmm. But then what kind of comes after this is we have a couple more days. Mavs play on Friday. But I think this is essentially the start of something like 14 games in 23 days. And
they just played 6 games in 16 days.
Right. Yeah. So it's truly remarkable what's about to happen to these Mavericks. That said, Luka Doncic in his post-game interview with Jeff Skin Wade kind of summed it up rather nicely. It was like, he cursed on air, and I think he came out and said, we can't come out and fuck around. And taking care of the Jazz like this, and granted, the Jazz were missing 3 starters. Like it was,
and they're already bad with those 3 starters. For the
yes, this game was sort of written in the stars with how what was going to happen during the game. And the Mavericks came out early. Luca his numbers since having a kid, I saw a tweet earlier, are he's scoring 38, dishing 13 assists and grabbing 15 rebounds.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do against this guy when he's really, really locked in?
Yeah. All while he's made 11 of 25 from 3, almost 50%. Only 11 turnovers. Shooting like 53% from the field overall. Like he's just, we all predicted this, right? Like this is a real theory. It's proven now. The NBA dad power up. It happened to Dorian Finney-Smith a couple years ago. Now it's happening to Luca. It's just, I feel like it's a fact of life now. If you have a baby in the NBA, you're going to play like a god for at least a handful of games afterwards.
And this was really remarkable because it was one thing to watch him activate, what happened, what the Thunder did, and Matthew and I talked about this. Matthew really did an excellent job in that podcast, by the way. What the Thunder did was really go to the extreme of like the basketball Overton window about how you guard Luka Doncic. They threw a double at him every stinking possession. And hello. He does not like doubles. Here, I'll mute for a second.
Okay. Yeah. And it felt like they doubled him a ton, the Thunder did. And that what was so nice about that game was what I wrote about was Lively scoring on 4-on-3s, which is like not something that I thought he had in his bag right now. So that was pretty cool. And tonight it felt like they didn't double him. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't feel like they doubled him at all. It was almost like they watched that Thunder tape and were like, we're just going to switch. We're going to hedge and we're going to switch. And so he just killed them from 3. Hit 6 of 12 from 3, killed them from the perimeter, killed them on switches against smaller players. I mean, he was dialed in from the moment the game started. And it was cool to see how the Mavericks handled the 2 different defensive strategies, the double teaming against OKC and then, playing a switch, the Utah Jazz kind of switching against him. But he was awesome. And it was cool to see him. I mean, like 29-point triple-double in the first half. That's the first time a player has ever had a triple-double and a half with 25 points or more. And he did it with 29, which was pretty awesome. So this was one of the best games he's ever – I mean, he's played a lot of awesome games, so I'm kind of losing count of all of his awesome games, but this was definitely one of the best games he's ever played in his career, I think. And really, if the score was any closer, I mean, he didn't play the fourth quarter. So, like, if this was in any shape or form a close game, I mean, the numbers might have been bananas for him tonight. You okay?
Oh yeah, just it's so funny because kids just do whatever the heck they want. Nighttime is definitely witching hour. I'm a month in, and things are going pretty good. It's just funny. He's so pissy tonight. I don't know why. He gave a lot of the Chris Dunn face to me just then, where he was just like, ah. So, but that's why it's like the 2 games back to back. And I'm glad you talked about what Luka did there. It was so interesting because it's essentially shows you the 2 options that you have, which are throwing doubles at him or, letting him go one-on-one and see what happens. And there's really no other alternative, particularly when you don't have, a series of wing defenders to sort of wear him down over time. That was really what was really remarkable. So that part was pretty fun. What else did you like about this game besides the Luka of it all?
Oh boy, where to start? I mean, everyone in the starting lineup had at least a plus minus of plus 26. I think the common storyline coming out of this game, besides from Luka, is going to be Dante Exum, who probably had the best 2 of 9 shooting, best game ever while shooting 2 of 9 from the floor and scoring only 5 points. He had 7 assists, 6 rebounds, 2 steals, 0 turnovers. And he really felt like it's kind of a cliche term now, but like the connector from the stars and the other role players. And it was really impressive to see him in the starting lineup with Luca, Kyrie, Derek Jones Jr. and just kind of fit. And granted, it's the Jazz and it's a depleted Jazz team at that. So it's hard to want to take away too much from a singular performance. But Exum's kind of been that guy most of the season. And yeah, he's done it mostly against other backups. A lot of the lineups he's in, basically almost every lineup he's in that's played a decent chunk of possessions or minutes has been positive. I don't think that's a coincidence, although it definitely helps that most of the lineups he plays in are against other opposing teams' bench units. But it's starting to get to a point where the data might become a little overwhelming, where the Mavericks might feel like they have a difficult decision to make. Well, I don't know if it's difficult. It's a good decision to make. When you've got players playing well, that might be forcing their way into a more prominent role in the rotation. But, nothing against Grant Williams, but this starting lineup with Exum and Jones, Lively, Luka, and Doncic, everyone just seems to fit into place really well. There's probably not enough spot up shooting because Exum is just he cannot shoot. His form is pretty busted. And relying on Jones Jr. to be like the other floor spacer besides Kyrie when Luca has the ball. I don't know long term how much that could survive. I was talking with Matthew Phillips, our staffer in Slack, and he was like, against a good team will be better prepared to handle Exum on the offensive end. Like that, they'd be able to take advantage of his lack of shooting. But against these bad teams, man, it looks great because he's big. He's so smart with the ball and making the extra pass and making reads off secondary actions. You know, he was pegged as like a starting point guard coming into the draft, and I think that's where he's kind of faltered, being like a lead guy.
Sure.
To be a guy like a floater next to Kyrie and Luca, I feel like is really accentuating his strengths and lowering his weaknesses, and it works right now. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term starting lineup decision because I don't see Grant Williams leaving the starting lineup anytime soon. But he was awesome. I mean, he felt like the next story besides Luca. Like his fingerprints were all over this game, both defensively and moving the ball on offense.
Sorry, I'm just having. This is really funny.
You're okay, I can keep going.
Do it.
Yeah. Do you want me to just keep going?
Well, he's just very disagreeable this evening. Yeah, really. I apologize, podcasters. Those who are watching on video. Hopefully, the audio doesn't come through quite the same. But the thing that I always get struck by when I watch Exum on the floor is, and this might be kind of a Mavericks problem at large, is just how much bigger he is than the other players. Yes. And maybe that's because Kyrie's 6'2". Maybe that's because Josh Green is 6'3.5" and not very, and Grant Williams is 6'5" at best. Like this, but he looks like a bigger player, and like the bigger ball handler stuff, it helps eliminate a lot of the problems. I mean, at least against worse teams. And yeah, I know you had this conversation with Matt Moore at like 3 a.m. After the Friday night game, where it's like you gotta find ways to the fact that the Mavericks are beating bad teams. I don't think we're putting enough emphasis on why that's important, because if you want to make the playoffs through the play-in, let's assume there are 30 teams. I mean, there are 30 teams in the league. If you assume that the Mavericks on any given night are better than 20 of them, that means you should win most of the games you play.
Mm-hmm.
So does it suck that the Mavericks can't beat a good team? Yes. That Lakers win is about the only one they have, and I still don't know how to feel about the Los Angeles Lakers. But it is what it is. You kind of got to go with what the teams that you're put in front of you. So through 20 games, the Mavericks are 12-8. Where do they sit in the standings right now? Can you tell me?
They are above they were 6th entering tonight. So let me double check real quick. They are now 4th.
They're above kind of the play-in line. They're above they're definitely
barely.
The playoffs.
The Suns are 7th at 12-9. So it's really jumbled from the Thunder are 13-7. I mean, there's a bunch of teams with 7 to 10 losses.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely going to be. I feel like it's going to end up like last season, where it feels like the difference between like 3rd and 10th is like a handful. Like barely a handful of games. So a loss could definitely like put them into 8th, but yeah, they're solidly a playoff team because the Warriors are currently 11th and they're 9-11. So under 500. And then after the Jazz are 12th at 7-14. So they're clear of missing the play-in for sure.
So I'm going to tell you why I care about that when I come back here in just a second here. So, so angry. One of the things that I do on this show just about every time is we talk about going down and hitting that like button, hitting the subscribe button, becoming basically a part of the subscribers to Pod Maverick. It's something that Josh and I are pushing forward this year. We would also really like it if after the show you could go and leave a comment on the actual YouTube video itself. That sort of thing very much helps Josh and I. And we'll be right back after a brief break, at least audio listeners. You'll hear this on your podcast feed that we'll be going to add. So thanks so much. Okay, so the main reason that I really care about that 20-8 thing has to do with the fact that several years ago, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 years ago, John Schulman, who's the head writer for NBA.com, essentially went through and hello, baby retrieval, essentially went through and did a whole very big study on playoff teams and was able to figure out that the first 20 games are remarkably indicative of what happens for a team's entire season. And with that, if you're in the playoffs at the 20 game mark, you tend to stick there the entire year unless something really goes awry with your season.
Yeah, they mentioned that on the broadcast, and Devin Harris was quick to mention that, funny enough, the Utah Jazz last season started 12-8. And they did not make the play-in or the playoffs, so that was kind of funny. But yes, it's like 90% of the teams that have 12 wins in the first 20 games, basically your playoff lock. Yeah,
right. And so that was it was something I've been keeping my eye on, but didn't talk about prior to tonight because I didn't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
But that's where notching these low rent wins is pretty important. They play who do they play on Friday? They play the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, they've got the cupcake trio.
They are catastrophically bad. It's like them, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Detroit Pistons are just atrocious. And so the Mavericks getting a win there would obviously be helpful too. And it's just like you want to stack these wins to where if you go on a 3-game losing streak, it's a little more, it's not like acceptable, but it helps sort of cushion the blow with how long the season is, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, well, hell, they already did withstand the blow, right? Like they lost 3 out of 6, their last 6 games, I think. They lost 3 out of their last 4 or 5. And then they lost 5 out of their last 7.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still 12, they get a win and they're 12-8 because they started the season 8-2 because they kicked the crap out of the Spurs, the Nets, the Grizzlies, the Bulls, the Hornets, the Clippers when they were down bad after the James Harden trade, the Pelicans when they were down bad when they had, no injuries, and they kicked the crap out of the Wizards. That's why you do that, because then when you lose to the Bucks and the Kings and the Thunder, it doesn't, standings wise at least, it doesn't really hurt you that bad in terms of how you're going to get in terms of wanting to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's just nice. I mean, it was funny. I saw somebody tweet Nick Angstad of Locked On Mavericks where it's like, talk about positive shit, bro, which is just going to be, it's just going to be a meme for the rest of the year. Thanks, Jason Kidd. And other, like, I sort of like struggle with what to talk about in this game. What did you think of their defense? Because I thought the first half it was still pretty terrible. It just didn't matter.
Yeah. Defensively, I think this is such a weird game to judge them defensively on. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jazz starting lineup: John Collins, Keontae George, this guy named Omer Yurtseven.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord, I can't pronounce the other guy's name either. Simone Fontasio.
Mm.
There's just a grab bag of names. So I don't know how much this is a game that you can be like, the Mavericks defense is fixed. There was definitely some issues in the first half with closeouts and blow-bys and rotations, which I think is that's just going to be a problem with this team with the way it's constructed. They need to try to limit the damage, and they did tonight. And when the shots are, falling, this team, this is one of those teams where their confidence really rides on the offensive end of the floor, and I feel like they're just so much more locked in when they get a shot. I feel like this is a team that really kind of hangs its head on defense when the offense isn't going their way. So, obviously tonight, once they were rolling, it was just once they got the boulder rolling downhill, there was just really felt like there was no stopping it, especially since the Jazz are so undermanned.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard from I don't know if they did anything different on defense tonight. I don't know if I was watching attentively enough, but yeah.
I watched enough of the penetration where Lively is and Lively's just so big, and defenders are doing a really nice job attacking over him and throwing, lob passes to cutters as they come down the lane. And like, that's the stuff that pisses me off as a lapsed big man myself, where it's just like, you got to have help. If Lively's stepping up and somebody's cutting from the backside, there's always, it's like at least one Mav is like usually sitting there going, huh? And it just, really, really kind of like just frustrates me, but I'm not really sure that there's too much to do about it with the lineups that they have. I mean, one of the things we've not talked about yet, just because it hasn't come up yet, is Josh Green has a mysterious shooting elbow sprain.
Yeah,
again, like we can't emphasize this enough, guys. Think about how many elbow sprains you've ever heard of. I might reach out to our friend who does the injury blog to ask about this, because shooting arm sprains are just weird. I don't know like how he did it. I don't remember him hurting it, but it's like I wonder if Josh Green being out sort of forces some clarification within some of these lineups. I think they feel obligated to play him because they paid him. And now if he's hurt for a couple of weeks, it allows some of this stuff to sort of come out in the wash, because you have to play Jaden Hardy a couple of minutes. You have to play Dante Exum over 20 minutes a game. God, Dante Exum had 5, 6, and 7. That's pretty amazing. Sorry. I got confused for a moment. So I don't know. Do you think there's anything to that, or am I being an ass about Josh Green as per the usual?
No, I do think the injury is weird. I mean, we've been doing this a long time. I don't know how many elbow injuries we've seen, let alone he's now gotten it twice in 2 years, and both times they've been like multi-week absences. That's weird. I'll be honest, the only time I can remember an NBA player getting an elbow injury was Dirk, when he got the Carl Landry teeth into his elbow when I think he was swinging elbows or something and got Landry in the mouth, and he got a tooth stuck in Dirk's elbow.
Yes.
But again, that's more just like kind of random. The fact that it's 2 straight years, it's like, is this a chronic thing? Is there something going on with his elbow? But that's a little weird. But hey, it allowed the Mavericks to, these last 2 games, try some different things. And when you're in a little bit of a losing streak, it helps to be able to maybe try some new lineups, try some new players.
This is an incredible deep cut. Yeah. Josh Green shoots like he's Rick Ankiel. If you understand that reference, my God. And Bobby says he's going to need Tommy John surgery. God, I hope not. You know how fucking bad that would be?
Yeah. Let's not worry about that.
I love to hate on Josh Green, but I also think the Mavericks need the things he provides when he's doing well.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, for sure. Oh man.
Yeah. So all right. So I think we're done with this game. Is there anything else that you really want to touch on from anything from the last few days, or are we just sort of kind of at a spot where we should call it quickly for the night?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know why I think there was such an emotional reaction to that Thunder loss just because of how heartbreaking it was. But like, that was a lot. Like, that was a schedule loss. Like, it was kind of weird how there was a lot of skies falling after that game, considering the Mavericks were missing like 4 out
going
of the top
up
6 players.
Hurts.
I know.
And there was a complete Kid. Like, on the one hand, I really appreciate how Kid rode with all the guys who got them back into the game. But then they had the lead, and he let the same guys stay. In the moment, once like when you're playing from behind, I don't know if you remember this from when you were a kid. When I played NBA Jam when I was in like 5th grade, if you got down by like 100 points, you could just start shooting full court jumpers and the computer would put you back into the game because it wanted a close game. The Mavericks willed themselves back into it. And then it was like, oh shit, we're back into it. There's 4 minutes left. We still have to figure out how to do this. And everything just really went south from there. Like, Luca's travel wasn't great, but it is what it is. But then there were like a couple of other plays by, who was it? Lawson had a couple of struggle bus plays after being absolutely imperative to getting them back into it.
Yep.
And it's just, I sort of wish in hindsight, I didn't think this at the time. I didn't think this at that night, that kid had put in a steadier hand at that point. Cause like Lawson was playing over his skis. That's a lot to ask of a G League guy, even if he's an older player.
Probably didn't want to touch. I mean, hey, when a lineup gets you a 30-0 run, it's probably tough to want to make a substitution.
I agree. Right.
They just ran out of, and I mean, they should have lost that game by 30, and I don't think anyone would have really batted an eyelash at it, considering it was second night of back-to-back, and they were missing, half their rotation. So the fact that they could have won it and didn't doesn't really, I don't know. It doesn't really change the kind of expectation level that I have on the team or anything like that. But
yeah,
hey, 3 nights off definitely helped this team a lot. Playing a bad Jazz team. You can really see it in the 3-point shooting. They were 22 of 49. Fresh legs definitely is a cure for bad 3-point shooting, because I feel like they haven't had a good 3-point shooting game in a couple of weeks. So that was another good sign, I think, tonight.
I agree with that. Like Luca's
3-point shooting is nuts.
It really is. I mean, 6 of 12 tonight, 5 of 13 the other night, 3 of 10 before that, then 1 of 8. Like he went through a stretch kind of during the Thanksgiving stretch where he was really bad from 3, and now it's back up. I mean, the man, like, what is he shooting from 3? It's beyond preposterous. 32, if you're rounding up, the man is averaging 32, 9, and 9. Like, what the hell?
Which is basically what he was doing last season.
No, he did 32, 8, and 8. And so it's like you're up a one full thing while your usage is down, because his usage is down. Man, 3.8 turnovers. Anyways, he's shooting 39.5% from 3 for the year.
Sorry. It's one of those things. I wrote about his rim rate the other day because it's pretty low. Not pretty low. It's a career low. It's far and away the lowest. But if he keeps making threes, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, that's a conversation for another day about that, but not after the Mavericks win by 50 points. We'll see.
Just great. Well, I can't really think of anything else to talk about. I kind of don't want to beat any dead horses into the ground. We got a pretty high viewer count in here. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us a little bit. I'll do better next game. We'll see. I have kind of an interesting rest of December. Josh might be podcasting alone a few times or with other members of the staff. I do a thing, and I've always done this. Josh can tell you. I tend to sort of take on as many things as possible until I crack. And while I am personally fine, and my wife is fine, between babies and work, we might be a little bit over our skis ourselves here. So if I'm not around during certain parts of the second half of December, that is why. We're doing good stuff over at Mavs Moneyball. Though I think, not enough games means not enough stuff to talk about. Which is a little frustrating, but that, that'll get rectified real quick. Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. I mean, one thing I want to say before we go is I know we've talked about Luca a lot, but I feel like I just really want to emphasize how good he was this game. Because Kirk, I know you know this, but I feel like some people that like to criticize our podcast, which is fine if you want to, I'm not trying to deny criticism, but there is kind of a trend in our recaps and our podcast. Sometimes we don't talk about Luca maybe as much as we should, because there's kind of been that built-in, like, oh, well, he does this all the time. Like it's almost more interesting to talk about the other stuff, because Luca being a demigod on the floor is like a built-in expectation at this point. And we'll get comments on recaps that's like, wait, why didn't you talk about Luca's 35-point triple-double? And it's like, because he does that every game. Sorry, like, we're trying to talk about some other guys, but I just want to emphasize, like, that was a breathtaking first half. It was an all-time
you're right.
24 minutes of basketball.
I forgot to do it this Thanksgiving, but one of the things I do almost every Thanksgiving, and have since the Mavericks won or drafted Luca, is I share on Thanksgiving. I've done this for like 4 years in a row. I share the podcast from the night that the Mavericks drafted Luca, where I am just drunk I am so drunk during this podcast because I was pretty well. I don't think so happy. And listening to this podcast and our expectations for what we had hoped for from Luca, we had lofty expectations. Lofty. He has destroyed those. we were like I listened to it. I listened to it a couple of weeks ago because I was like, oh, we had hoped for Luca to be an all-star by the time he was like 27.
Really?
Yeah, we had we never talked about all NBA stuff. We never talked about, like for his rookie year, we had like ridiculous stuff like 16-4 and 4.
I remember that.
Like where it's like, yeah, we're gonna go, and then he comes on just like he's completely reset the timeline. There's a podcast coming out tomorrow, but I've seen the bulk of it that matters to us. It's up on Mavs Moneyball. Kristaps Porzingis talking about he and Luka's kind of relationship and his time with the Mavericks. And what's so clear listening to that, because the Mavericks traded for Kristaps during Luka's rookie year when he was good, but he hadn't blown up. It's very clear that Kristaps thought he was coming to be the guy and Luka was going to be his sidekick.
And he hints at that. It's not, that's not really, he kind of hints at it a little bit.
Well, I mean, I have kind of a lot of disdain for Kristaps.
No.
But this podcast changed my mind about a lot of stuff. He was very, very candid. Yep. And what I kept coming back to is I was like, that first season, they were 16-5 to open the year. Then Kristaps got hurt. Then Luka got hurt. And then COVID happened. And then they're in the bubble together and they, Kristaps tears his knee. I mean, in hindsight, we never really got to see them together in a meaningful way. We saw glimpses and it was kind of shocking, but when you're talking about us not talking about Luka enough, I think about how much he has really grown and improved in ways that we don't give credit to, because everyone, including us, even the staunch Luka defenders, have unbelievable expectations for him. It's fan 123 in the chat says 4 straight all NBA first teams, soon to be 5 straight. And this is his 6th year. Ridiculous. This is all time stuff. And you're right. We don't talk about it enough.
Yeah. I just wanted to get that out there.
Good man. Josh.
Because I know we get the comments on every recap when Luka's not one of the main points. And it's like, what about Luka? And it's just like, you're right, but it's just funny. It's just funny how it's built in.
So Leor, I don't want to mess up this guy's name, but Leorio Ibardo in the chat says that, talking about Matisse Thybulle, it's like a revenge game, even though Portland signed him, matched his offer, wasn't really a thing. I have a really weird take that I was very anti Matisse Thybulle because I don't think he's a good defender. I think he's a good defender when there's a great back line like Joel Embiid, an all NBA kind of guy. Mm-hmm. With how good Lively looks, I cannot help but wonder if Matisse might have worked out better than I thought. Is that ridiculous?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look at Derrick Jones Jr. and I think actually Derrick Jones Jr., if you were comparing the two before this season, I would say Jones Jr. is a better basketball player, because, I mean, there's some numbers with Thybulle that are just like outrageous. Like, he just doesn't rebound. He's like the most allergic to offense player in the history of the game, it feels like. I
mean, he benefited from being able
to play with Embiid and
the Sixers guys that I know basically say he was able to indulge all of his worst impulses as a defender, like just constant gambling and being able to do stuff like that because he played with such a good backline defender. Yeah. And I don't know, I really like Lively's just dope. So it's like, it makes me wonder if it would work.
I still believe the take that every player like a Thybulle, like Jones, like those athletic-minded wings that might not have a consistent jumper need to call their agents and be like, how do I get to Dallas and play with Luka so that I can get the most wide-open three-pointers of my life and get a nice fat contract afterward?
Salam in the chat says Derrick Jones Jr. is a better fit by far. I agree, but it's also
they could have had both.
To Dalton Triggett, I wonder if there's a list of like quasi crappy wings that I'm like, who could the Mavericks go after that would like make us all kind of like vomit, but then Luka would turn into a pretty good player.
That'd be an interesting post.
Shout out to Lauren Gunn.
She
would have done this for Lauren Gunn would have done this for us back in the day. I don't know, just something that's on my mind. Anyway, all right. I think I should go. As you guys saw, my wife arrived home and took the baby from me. I should go see how that's going and hope that I am still married. She is a patient woman with me. Guys, again, I apologize for the baby stuff. Just going to be part of things until I get into more of a routine, which isn't going to happen until like month 3 because that's how babies work. All right. Kirk Henderson, Josh Bowe. This has been Pod Maverick After Dark, and thank you so much for hanging out. I'm not going to do a second stream tonight. I probably should, just because it helps our numbers. But I'm wiped. So, all right, we'll be back Friday night with a late game, and we'll see what's going on. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk soon. Go Mavs.